Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney, and today is Tuesday, March 8th. Thank you for being here for the top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. This is the show where we talk about the stories that matter most to you here in Northeast Ohio. These are the stories that you are clicking on, reading, and sharing from our website and our app. Let's start with a big story that affects everyone here in the country and also internationally today. President Joe Biden has announced there will be a ban on oil imports from Russia. Now, this is a major move from the U.S., but what does it exactly mean? Well, it has been talked about that sanctioning energy exports from Russia might be the most effective way to get Russia to pull back on its attacks in its war on Ukraine. But this would be more effective if European allies could get on board. Now, the issue with that, though, is that the U.S. imports a relatively small amount of oil from Russia, whereas European countries import much more. So there has been some talk, for example, from Britain announcing that it would phase out Russian oil imports by the end of the year, but it's March, and that is a very long way away. As I mentioned, unlike the U.S., Europe is very reliant on imports from Russia. Russia is the world's second largest crude oil exporter. That's behind Saudi Arabia. And the U.S. could replace the small amount of fuel that it receives from Moscow. Again, Europe not necessarily able to do that anytime soon. Here's the other issue. Curbing Russian oil exports could send already very high oil and gasoline prices even higher. That's on both continents. So that's something that impacts consumers, businesses, financial markets, and the global economy. But as President Biden said today, here in America, both Democrats and Republicans understand that this is something that needs to be done and something that we will have to figure out here in the U.S. Back here at home, the man who was wanted for a double murder that happened on Thanksgiving has been captured in Lorain. He's been identified as 31-year-old Daniel Joseph Glenn. He was arrested and charged on 2 counts of murder early Tuesday. He was taken into custody by members of the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force. This was at his home on Apple Avenue in Lorain. Now, back on Thanksgiving, Daniel Scholes and Kara Odom were found with several gunshot wounds inside a vehicle. Cleveland police responded to the area. It was on West 47th Street and Denison. It was early Thanksgiving morning, and they were pronounced dead at the scene. So now we move into the phase, now that this suspect is in custody, into the criminal justice process of the phase, and he will have his day in court. Now let's talk a little bit about COVID-19 here in Ohio. COVID vaccination has hit a record sort of lull point here in Ohio. Less than 2 in 3 people in Ohio are vaccinated. Ohio remains under-vaccinated on a national and an international scale. 62% of Ohio residents are vaccine started, not fully vaccinated. 57% have completed the entire vaccination protocol. About 22,000 Ohioans, here's the impact of that, have died of COVID-19 since January 1st, 2021. That's when the vaccine started becoming more available here in Ohio. And about 95% of those people were unvaccinated. Now, in the same time period, 64,000 Ohioans have been hospitalized with COVID-19, and about 93.5% of those people were not vaccinated. So you can see by taking a look at those numbers what the medical professionals have been telling us all along, that vaccination is one of the best tools that we have against hospitalization and death related to COVID-19. Now, if you take a look at state ranks, Ohio is the 8th least vaccinated started in the nation and the 17th least fully vaccinated. That's according to data from the New York Times. Nationally, despite access to vaccines, Americans are about 76% vaccine started, so they've had at least one COVID-19 vaccine shot, and that's below a list of countries, including Cuba, which is 94% vaccine started, Chile, which is 93% vaccine started, Canada at 86%, and Vietnam at 81%. That's according to Our World in Data, which is a global public data set that's been tracking the pandemic. Now let's talk about the COVID-19 numbers here in Ohio. In the last 24 hours, we now know right now that there are 743 people in the hospital being treated for COVID-19, and out of those people, 147 are being treated in the ICU. That hospitalization overall number is a drop from yesterday. Now, we are seeing an increase in reported cases today. That number is at 799, and the total number of people now who have died in Ohio related to COVID-19 is 37,000. 212. Now, obviously, the numbers are going in the right direction, and that is something that we like to see. And so we are now seeing businesses, counties, cities, places drop those mask requirements, and Playhouse Square is one of those. That's a theater district in downtown Cleveland. So they announced yesterday that masks would be optional moving forward at Playhouse Square. They say, though, that there might be exceptions that are required by certain performers or certain artists that come through Playhouse Square, and that they ask that all audience members be respectful of other people's choices. So you might still see some people wearing masks, even if they're not required, because they choose to do so. Also, this does away with the requirement, according to Playhouse Square, of including vaccination proof or negative testing before coming into a show. Now, speaking of performances, we have seen Ohio's Shanae Ankney and how she has been performing, we'll say, on The Bachelor, since she did herself compare her performance to that of Meryl Streep. And yesterday was the Women Tell All special, and it was a rough night for Shanae. Not only did the Bachelor Clayton Echard have harsh words for her, so did a lot of those women. And Clayton told her to her face from the stage, he said, "I trusted you, I believed you, and it was the worst thing that I could have done." To that, Shanae responded that he asked for openness, vulnerability, and honesty, and she said that she gave him all of that, but she did not get to say that to him until after many of the women had a lot to say to her. It was hard for Shanae to get a word in edgewise because the women were just really shouting over her. They were throwing out the B word, which is something that Shanae herself used very early and very often on the TV show. She was accused of being a narcissist. She was accused of being a liar, and she did actually own up to lying about the apology that she gave the women. If you remember when she tossed that football trophy, she said, yeah, she was there for Clayton. He wanted her to apologize. It was important to him, so she did it, but she didn't want to apologize, and she didn't mean it, and she wasn't sorry. So not a lot of closure between Shanae and the women. Hoping to have a conversation with her soon. Keep you posted on that. Hoping to have her on the 3 Things to Know podcast so we can get more of her side of the story of how everything went down and how what she was doing and what she was saying in those on-camera interviews jives with the person that Shanae actually is. So looking forward to hearing more about that. But in the meantime, we will continue to follow Rachel Rakia's journey on The Bachelor because she is one of 3 women left. She's a recent Ohio University graduate, and it does look quite dramatic. From here on out, we have another episode tomorrow and then 2 episodes next week, and there will be a live finale, and we will see how this journey ends for Clayton Echard and our Rachel Rakia, again, OU Bobcat. Now, speaking of people speaking out and speaking their mind, Cleveland Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield has returned to social media. This is after he said he was taking a social media hiatus. That was back in January. So in his first post today, since January 23rd, he celebrated the news that he's got a statue going up at the University of Oklahoma. It's going to be unveiled and dedicated at the Sooners spring game in Norman on April 23rd. He said he will be there. He said he's humbled and he's honored. He said, "See y'all on 423, hashtag Boomer Sooner." So this is the first we've heard from him after he said he was taking a break from social media so that he could focus on himself, his family, and his loved ones and do what's best for him and take that time to get right. So who knows if we'll be hearing more from him, but for the meantime, welcome back to social media, Baker Mayfield. And welcome to Montrose to Phantom Fireworks. They are taking over what was a laser tag facility, and it's been vacant in the pandemic, but now it's going to be a Phantom Fireworks warehouse. No official opening date set yet, but you know people in Ohio do love their fireworks. So that's coming to Summit County, and that'll be the largest fireworks showroom permitted in the state. That'll be opening later this year. I mean, it's got to open before 4th of July, right? Well, we don't know for sure when it will open, but we would have to assume before then. Something that's coming up very soon is the Cleveland Marathon, and its 2022 race courses have been announced. There'll be a little bit of a change of scenery this year because the race is going to start and finish at Memorial Plaza by the Fountain of Eternal Life statue right in downtown Cleveland. Now, the Fountain of Eternal Life statue, if you're not familiar, it was originally dedicated to Korea and Vietnam veterans. It's been known to recognize any loss of service, men or women, since 1899, and it's got subtle nods to diversity, representing different cultures, religions, and backgrounds. That's a highlight of the course. Other highlights include Public Square, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Great Lakes Science Center. So race events kick off on Friday, May 20th. The 5K and the 10K are on Saturday, May 21st, and the full and half marathons are Sunday, May 22nd. If you want to register for that, which I've ran a couple half marathons in my life. Not something that I'm doing now, but if it's your thing, you can register for it. We have the link on WKYC.com. And before we go here, we have to celebrate a local icon. His name is Les Flake, and you may know him from Progressive Field or First Energy Stadium or Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, being the guy who is referred to as the beer guy, yelling cold beer here. Well, there is now a beer to honor him. Matt Van, who owns the Jolly Scholar Bar on the campus of Case Western Reserve University, has named the light lager cold beer here after Les. So you can pick that up there, and they hope to get it in Progressive Field. Maybe not this year because of everything that's going on with the Major League Baseball lockout, but maybe next year. That's the goal there. They said this has been a work in progress for a while. COVID kind of put a stop to it for a little bit, but now it's available. So if you want to pick up cold beer here, you can do that at the Jolly Scholar on the campus of Case Western Reserve University. That's it for your 3 News Now update today for Tuesday, March 8th. I will see you all back here tomorrow with more 3 News Now.